Time at 7:02. We'll call the meeting to order for the Bourne Board of Sewer Commissioners. July 13th, 7:02 p.m. The first thing on the agenda, let's see. Note, this meeting is being televised, streamed, or recorded by Bourne TV. If anyone in the audience is recording or videotaping, they need to acknowledge at this time. We have one. All items within the meeting agenda are subject to deliberation and vote or votes by the Board of Sewer Commissioners. First thing on the agenda is, if you will, a moment of silence to recognize our troops and public safety personnel. And a salute to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. For tonight's meeting, we'll skip over the vision and mission, as we often do with the sewer commissioners. Next would be public comment or non-agenda items. Public comments are allowed for up to a total of 12 minutes at the beginning of each meeting. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes for comment. Based on past practice, members of the board are not allowed to comment or respond to those statements that are not within the agenda. Number 6, meeting minutes for April 27th, 2021.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of April 27th, 2021.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
I'll abstain. I wasn't at the meeting.
4-0 and 1 abstention, please. And next would be the update for the Cape Cod and Island Water Protection Fund financing update.
So if you recall, this past spring, Bourne was awarded a subsidy to our SRF loan in the amount of $1.165 million and a little bit more. At the time, we didn't have any information on how that subsidy would be applied to our SRF loan, but we were told that, you know, probably within about 30 days of that notification, they would be working on sending out the guidance. So on the 1st of June, the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund sent a letter to the Clean Water Trust, essentially outlining the fact that these subsidies have been awarded to the various towns in the amount of that. And then we waited probably a couple weeks, and around the 21st or 22nd of June, I was notified by the Clean Water Trust that they would be sending an updated financing agreement to the town that needed to be executed before the end of the fiscal year. So they didn't give a whole lot of time, not that there was much to it, and not that we weren't going to sign it. So, so that was signed electronically and sent back to them before the end of the fiscal year. And essentially what that is doing for us, if you remember, the original SRF loan was a little over $4 million, about $4.6 million. We had a loan forgiveness of just over $153,000, and then after that we got the subsidy of $1.165 million. So our net loan to the SRF is going to be about $3.341 million. And so the subsidy is going to be applied over a period of 4 years, so it's about $297,000 for each of those 4 years. It's about 25% of the overall original SRF loan, so it's a pretty decent help for the town. We expect that we'll be closing around May 2022 on the loan, and we think the way this will work is that they're you know, we'll do the permanent or the long-term financing on that $3.341 million, and then there'll be a short-term loan on the balance that the subsidy will get applied to over the course of those 4 years. And so that's a significant savings for the town. Originally, we were expecting a reduction, or the reduction in the debt service being around $387,000 overall, so pretty good reduction in the overall debt service cost a long time. Now, if you remember, that loan is 48.5% general fund and 51.5% to the sewer enterprise fund. So as they apply the subsidy, both sides are getting, the benefit of that. So the reality of it from the sewer rate, which is what we were trying to focus on, only resulted in about a $24 decrease to, the sewer rate for FY22 based on the budget that we presented. So we ended up being able to back out $26,100, which was what we had budgeted for debt service. So when you back that out, it had an effect on the rates based on what we voted at town meeting in the budget of about $24 on the rate. So if you remember, we started off originally with a little over a $500 increase in the sewer rates, which was pretty shocking, I think, to all of us. And we worked to adjust the budget. We reduced that down to about a $283 increase. And now with the subsidy being applied, we're sitting at about a $259 increase. And again, that's based on the budget that was presented at, at town meeting. So our first debt payment won't be due until July of 2023. So that's actually next fiscal year. If the subsidies hadn't been applied, the 153 plus the 1.165 million, our debt service was expected to be about $287,000 a year total. And so now it's cut down to about $208,000, so about a $79,000 decrease annually. So about $101,000 will go to the general fund, and about $107,000 or $108,000 will go to the sewer enterprise fund. So that's where we're at. What did I leave out? What did I forget?
You got it covered. So, like Tony said, the big thing is that it's pushed our loan out till fiscal '23. So in fiscal '22, we are able to reduce the budget by that $26,000 that we anticipated. And then we'll see how the cookie crumbles in fiscal '23.
So I think all the bullet points is, we were able to not only, we all knew we had to increase the ratepayers' rate, but we reduced it by quite a bit through some hard work from the staff. And I think that's important. And I think it's also important that we were able to lower that increase significantly, as well as continue putting into the enterprise fund. And that's something that we need. We've all discussed that. We have a lot of old pipes in the ground. Old equipment breaks, and we're going to need some money in that enterprise fund to fix those things.
Yeah, we actually have a couple of procurements out right now for some upkeep, repair, and maintenance on, one's we call it the Monster Muffin pump that's down here on Main Street. So, yeah, there hasn't been a lot of investment made, so we're actually starting to move forward on some of those projects with the money that's already been allocated for some of the sewer upkeep and maintenance. So,
and that's
there's
significant.
certainly going to be more. I think once we have a chance to analyze the I&I study and figure out where we have some potential issues, and then develop plans around that to get projects started to address that. So yeah, there's probably going to be more. There will be more work to do in the future.
I think all in all, we need to knock on some wood. We've been pretty lucky with all the stuff that's in the ground. But it's good to start preparing to replace some of that stuff. I mean, upkeep's one thing, but replacement's important as well. Anything else? Anyone?
I think that's it on that. Just questions, if any of the board members have, questions on any of that.
I just have one question. So for the debt service, will we have something at the fall town meeting to reduce that line by the 20, whatever the difference is?
Yeah,
A budget
26
adjustment, you
meetings.
mean?
Yep.
Yeah,
meeting can
so
make that.
that'll be good. Thank you.
All right, seeing nothing else, we'll move on. Next is the new wastewater treatment plant on Armory Road.
So they did the clear water test last week. Everything went well. DEP had a couple of, minor comments on things they wanted to see, some labeling and a couple of other things, nothing that was really any type of showstopper. So now we wait for the, essentially what they call the authorization to operate. So that's got to go through the wickets. One of the things, there were a couple of, I'll call them, maybe things that fell through the cracks on the big Gantt chart for the project, but we got towards the end game and all of a sudden said, hey, we need fiber optics going to the plant, and we need a dedicated phone line going to the pump station out here. Seems minor, but takes time, right? So we have a temporary solution for the internet connection, and we should be running, Glenn, the fiber optics here shortly, right? We have a contract we signed with Open Cape, so
Correct.
that's moving forward. But Verizon is, they're a couple of weeks out still. At least the recommendation at this point from the engineer is that, we not operate until we have that permanent phone line. So the reason for that is if we have alarms or things that go on at the pump station is what's called an auto dialer that will dial the sewer plant operators, which are Weston and Sampson, to notify them that there's a problem at the pump station. So they were able to test it during the Clearwater test with, I guess I'll call it a temporary phone line. Everything worked fine with the auto dialer and all that. So that was, that was good. And so now, we expect that probably within the next couple of weeks, we should be ready to accept flow, assuming we get DEP's full, sign off on the system.
So just a curiosity question for myself. The auto dialer phone line, is that going to be a fiber optic phone line, or is that going to be standard
I don't think it's copper.
fiber optic or copper?
Yeah, my guess is it's not copper, because those are like the really old style. So
Right.
I'm not sure if it's fiber optic or how they actually do that, but I don't think it's actual copper.
Yeah, no, it's just a matter of some's a little better than others.
Yeah, right.
Just a curiosity question for myself.
Yeah, we can find out. I don't know the answer to it, though.
Any other questions from the board?
Jared,
Yes, sir.
if anybody from the board wants to see the facility at all, work for the town administrator, and then they can meet with the OPM on site, and the OPM or the foreman can take them through. Just remember that if you do go there, have good shoes, or like sneaker and boots or something, or sneakers or something hot, because of you don't want to be in sandals walking through there. So
Open,
Wonder why you're looking at me?
open-toed shoes are a bad thing.
Yeah, go now before they seed the plant, so.
Yeah.
And that was the advice.
They put a little Ben Gay under
It's
your
really
nose.
working,
to-
you can
yeah.
really see it, yeah.
So I'm just saying, if anybody wants to see it, and just working for the town administrator, but it's definitely something that's worth seeing.
Yeah, it's a very interesting, it's a nice plant, and I have looked at the plans for the plant and talked to a couple of folks that are over there working, and having a construction background, it's an interesting plant, and there's some really good new technology that's in the plant. If you've never been through a plant like that, it is an interesting walk. So, anything else from the board? Oh, this is going way too easy. So we'll move on to number 9. Number 9 is our Board of Sewer Commissioners reorganization. Tonight's discussion and possible vote on all of the positions for the sewer commissioners. Jim Potter was the chair of the sewer commissioners and was not reelected, so that open seat continues from the top all the way down. Any nominations at this point? Go ahead.
Chair, I'd like to know if you are interested in being chair.
I would sit for the chair position, yes.
Then I would nominate Jared McDonald as the chair.
Is there a second?
Second for discussion.
Second for discussion. Any discussion?
Is there any other names that want?
I mean, I would say, my reasoning is that you've been involved with a lot of the discussions and can be that continuity. So it seems like that would make sense.
So I'll just make a statement, food for thought. Myself and Jim Potter, we have been working outside the bounds of the rest of the board for the last couple of years, meeting with Wareham especially. Those talks have been going well, but the pandemic put a big slow on that. As well, Jim and I have fostered a lot of conversation on future sewering of the town of Bourne, and I'd like to continue with that and move forward. We've had a lot of great things come about in the sewer realm here in Buzzards Bay, the Enterprise Fund. We've been working on trying to get more money back in that, as well as try to maintain the sewer rates at a reasonable rate, because as we know, everything goes up, rates go up, and we have to do the best that we can to keep them reasonably going up rather than large chunks at a time. And that's all. Go ahead.
So, I want to ask a couple questions about how you view the position as not working outside of the board to get things accomplished, to work with the board to get things accomplished?
So the past couple of years have been kind of specific because we did have to go outside of the board in order to maintain the meetings with Wareham and not have to have a full quorum of the Board of Sewer Commissioners every time that we met. The reason being for that was this was something that we knew was going to take time. We're working with another town, another entity, and so it's going to be a lot of back and forth based on especially the administrative fees that we were looking at from Wareham. There was a lot to discuss, and to have a full Board of Sewer Commissioners every time would be difficult. As we met several times, more than once a week, it was important to keep the continuity going. So this is something that we've always brought back to the board, and I feel like we were very good about keeping the board abreast of all of our meetings. Jim was especially good at that with emails and referencing points of interest that we discussed at those meetings. So it is something that we want to continue, and it may be something that now that we've addressed a lot of the issues, it may be something that we can have a full quorum of the Board of Sewer Commissioners for some of these meetings. Yes?
Through the chair. One of the things that was apparent was that there was not a clear avenue to having discussion and who were the players, and it's specifically talking about the Wareham relationship. And so, there had to be the rapport building. There had to be, finding out. And we had a joint meeting with the sewer commissioners only to discover that, in Wareham, only to discover they really don't have any power or authority. So it's like, well, where do we go from here? So there was a lot. I mean, I got the impression that there was a lot of that type of thing that was going on, of trying to figure out, who are the key people and who are making decisions.
Yeah, and that is exactly true, because their Board of Sewer Commissioners don't make decisions. They make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen, who have the authority to make the decisions. So it's a little bit different than here in Bourne. So it was detrimental to create a bonding, so to speak, or a happy medium with some of the people that were involved. I think we really had to grease some wheels and get things going to get to where we are now. We really built a good rapport with the Board of Sewer Commissioners, and I think that we're all on the same page, and that's what's important. And it took time. And I think, again, to have a full board of both sewer commissioners would have been very difficult to meet on a regular basis, as well as the extra meetings that we did. It would be very difficult to get all of the commissioners involved on both sides.
Can I ask another question? So, how is the strategy for these discussions developed before you go to the meetings, or are there,
So
have there been strategy discussions with the whole board where there was an executive session to discuss strategy?
So we did have meetings with the board, and it was agreed within the board originally from the very beginning that we would have myself and Jim Potter, as well as Glenn, have these meetings to try and sort out some of the issues that were brought up from our sewer commissioners' meetings. And so we were, as a board, confident with the three of us going and trying to sort out the information that was given to us from Wareham. So it was originally started from a full board.
So how do you see this going forward at this point?
I think from this point forward, there have been some changes, so we're gonna have to recoagulate, if you will, the people that are involved, and we're gonna have to sit down and have a couple of meetings, and then I think it's gonna have to become an issue between both boards that we start to break down not only the administrative fees, but where we go from here. As the coalition has suggested, they want to have Wareham has the base for this side of the bridge sewering and using the outfall pipe at Mass Maritime. So there's a lot that goes into that, but there's a lot that goes into that on both sides of the table, meaning Wareham and Bourne. So going forward, I would foresee a lot more combined meetings with both Board of Sewer Commissioners and even possibly with the selectmen from Wareham as they're the deciding factor. I think we're gonna have to have a full communal of everyone at some point.
I'm gonna make a kind of a statement. I am interested in being chair. And one of the reasons that I'm interested in being chair is I feel that there needs to be opportunities for citizen input and with environmental partners through that whole process. I'd like to see the reorganization of the Wastewater Advisory Committee. I'd like to see the Board of Sewer Commissioners establish a policy committee because we have major policies that need to be implemented in terms of allocation, sewer use regulations, retained earnings, financial policies. These are things that need to be developed as policies. And as I've watched over the last couple of years, they come to the full board and there's a lot of discussion and then there's a lot of questions, and that getting those things implemented without a policy subcommittee that can really work through all the issues is important. So you have experience, and I'm interested in whether or not we should be considering as a board having environmental partners or another consultant be working with us in terms of the negotiation with Wareham, who have a better understanding of rates and how it works. I think Wareham is going through some issues, and they have just released their moratorium based on the fact that I think Wareham, that Bourne's plant is going online, and they feel that they have flow for a couple of years. If you are confident that you can facilitate all of the issues in terms of policy and finance and working with Wareham and managing the comprehensive wastewater management plan and make sure that all those things are done in a timely basis, then I might be able to support you. But I think we're in a situation where there's a lot of work that has to be done, and this job is not going to be a job where the chair takes it on and does it. It's a job where the chair facilitates making sure that all the pieces that have to be put together and everyone that needs to know is included in the decision-making, and everyone that needs to support the decision in the end is brought up to speed through the whole time. And that's not just the board, it's the public as well.
Absolutely. I think one of the most important things is that the public understands what's going on, and that's been something that Jim especially has been good about trying to get the information out. The hard part sometimes is that you offer to the public an opportunity to ask their questions, whether it be via email or in person. A lot of times that questioning isn't done in the right forum, and unfortunately with social media, you find that that's where a lot of people are asking their questions, and they're not getting answers necessarily from the board specifically, or from the presenters that may come in from time to time. They're getting their answers from folks that think that they know what they're doing based on their past practices. Sewering today is changing almost as much as technology. Sewering today is regularly changing, and it's something that you have to rely on folks that are aware of what's going on and folks that understand what the future is in sewering. And it's some big changes that are going to be coming for everyone on the Cape, but especially with Bourne. There's a lot of bits and pieces here in Bourne, so it's important that we be very transparent, which Jim and myself have tried to be very transparent, and not only bring it back to the board but to the public. So I do feel that I have a good grasp on it, and we have started on policies and procedures and financial policies. Those are all things that we've started on, but there's a lot in the wheel. You're absolutely right. There's a lot of things spinning around that have to be controlled, and I feel very confident that I will be able to do that. And I think the important part of that is leadership, and with leadership, you learn to put the right people in the right places. And I think working with you as far as the outside items and working with even a committee to work on the policies and procedure is a great idea, and that's something that I'm very open to, and something that I think it's going to be very helpful. George?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, in a way, I was kind of taken aback by the fact that we didn't have this pre-discussion or this preemptive declaration of who's interested in what. And in hindsight, this is not bad, because this is an open discussion. Because I know there's some criticism of having a discussion in private that should be aired publicly. So in that respect, this is very good. And let me just say something about Jim Potter before we move on to this. He took the chair's job in year one. I mean, he was kind of unusually well poised because he had the experience from Wareham, and that could have been good, that could have been bad, but I think he did pretty well. And I was just taken aback when he first raised his hand a little over 3 years ago, and I was a week or two later, I was sitting on the stage at Bourne High School, and he was watching one of his children walk across the stage, graduating, one of his family members. And I was thinking, wow, this guy has a full-time job, and he's a select board member, and I think he coaches, and I know he's involved in quite a bit, other projects that has benefited the town. I said, wow, this is, somehow he has to make this happen. And I really had to take my hat off to him after those 3 years. Even though he wasn't reelected, I think we have to look at that and said, okay, he had to balance a lot. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who have jobs other than the situation I'm in, it's I have a lot of respect for balancing your time, but I would be inclined to support Mary Jane, or at least I'm very intrigued by her qualifications, because they're unusual. Mm-hmm. She's done a lot of background work similar to like Jim Potter, but even more so, especially because they're more germane to this town. But I'm still open for this discussion. It's just, I'm just a little concerned about your ability to manage your own business and still operate as a chair, because this is there's a lot of organization involved, and I think you have a good working knowledge. I always felt very comfortable, especially as you as vice chair, because of your construction background. That was always a big plus, and I think there's a lot of good things that happened. We didn't accomplish everything we could have accomplished, but there was a lot of just that Savory Avenue project, which is all Yeah, I think we're done on that.
but
We're done.
wrapped up?
All but wrapped up, okay,
Well,
but anyway,
yeah.
we've come a long way on that, and I was very pleased with that, and I was very pleased with the input that you were able to add to that body of knowledge that I didn't have.
That was a great project.
It
really
was. It was, but I would just, because of the other facets of the job, you know, I'm just concerned, and I continue to be a little concerned about the, you know, your ability to, you know, orchestrate all this from the position that you're in.
Mhm. Yes.
Yes, through the chair. You know, the last few years have been kind of interesting in that, you know, we had some extra super challenges that were kind of slowing us down in some of the areas that we'd like to have progress. I think one of the things that you bring to the board is the experience and the knowledge on making sure that connecting the right people with the right people and listening and having that conversation, developing the rapport. You can't underestimate that. I think that if, like when I was chair of the select board, I had a strong vice chair in terms of, you know, organizing and making sure we were delegating, and I felt very strongly as the chair, as a person who juggles a lot of different things also, that it is really important to identify what are the different things that need to go on and who can take the lead on those. Because the chair doesn't have to be Wonder Man or Wonder Woman. The chair has to be the person who can orchestrate what needs to happen. And as Mary Jane said, you know, making sure that, you know, that there are people engaged. It's not a one-person show. There are a lot of people who are willing to step up. I would like to see that also, you know, people stepping up and people being, you know, working on specific types of things like policies or specific areas. So, you know, some working groups. There are people who want to volunteer. Especially if it's not something that they have to run for. You know, to be elected to do. So I think that I see that the Wareham folks and the environmental partners are familiar with you, and so I think that is an important connection and continuity, and having someone strong as a vice chair would be really important.
Especially helpful, yeah.
Mhm.
And I think delegation is the big word there. Yeah, it's leadership is delegation. It's finding the right people to put in the right positions. And I think, you know, we've always been very transparent. Our last board of select members, as well as sewer commissioners, that was always very important. And I think we all stress that as a group. Transparency is important. And I want to make sure that people understand what's happening and where we're going and what we're going for. I think we have to have goals. And if you do not have goals, then you're just a mismanaged bunch of people going in different directions. So, you know, I think it's important to look at the future, and I think one of the goals is seeing where the town is going to benefit in different types of sewering issues, because the reality is that the Cape is going to have sewering. We're going to have to go away from septic systems, and we're going to have to go to sewering. The pollution at this point is it's too vast. So, you know, we need to look towards the future, and the future is going to be some sort of sewering, whether it be groups or associations or town sewering. There's going to have to be a lot of changes in sewering, and it's important that with change comes information, and you know, it's important to get that information to the board as well as to the community. Anything else from the board?
Since MJ is asked to put a name in nomination, I'll put a name in nomination.
Okay.
You know, just for, so I nominate MJ.
Okay.
I'll second.
Seconded. So we have two nominations, both seconded.
Can I talk about what I would have said about myself being chair.
Mhm.
So, people have known me a lot on the finance committee, which is a very different format than being on a board, because the finance committee, sort of individuals work individually and make individual decisions, and a board is different. We have to come together into a consensus and then have a consensus decision. When I started working on the wastewater facility design and building committee, we had a very short timeline in order to be able to get an answer from the town, yes or no, whether we were going to build the facility, because the location of the facility was going to be co-located with the police department, and we had to know at that time. So in order to get that accomplished, we had to work as a committee together to develop a timeline with milestones and time milestones. And one of the things that I'm concerned about with the CWMP is they've laid out a lot of tasks, but in the public documentation, I haven't seen any timeline with milestones for those tasks, and that's one of the things that I would really like to see. How are we going to get this done in 3 years or less? And when do we expect to see these things happen? I think that's really important. The other thing that we did as a committee is we talked about what needed to be done. We needed advertising and public outreach to be done. So we found people on the committee that were interested in those aspects to get those, and they could work together to get that done. We found that we needed to be able to identify finances, so we identified another subgroup of the committee that would be able to do that work. My strength is administration, finance, making sure the meetings are organized, making sure the bills were done, making sure the invoices were signed and submitted, making sure that the SRF submittals went in, that MassWorks submittals went in, the EPA, EDA submittals went in, working with Sharon Gay, who was the grant administrator, and finding that she was remarkable and was very competent, and I could hands off because I knew that what Sharon was going to do, she was going to do it well and make sure it was done well. When it came to the point of the construction aspects, I don't have a lot of expertise in construction beyond my bailiwick, so we had the vice chair of the committee, who was Stanley Andrews. He was the construction liaison. He worked with the OPM in terms of looking at different things. And when we got into construction, he was that contact. He went to the construction meetings. I didn't have to go to the construction meetings. We worked together as a committee to identify our strengths and weaknesses within a timeline of identifying critical priorities that had to be done and when they could be done. And I think we were, as a committee, successful because we worked together in getting things done the way that the committee could work the best together to get them done. And that's what I'd like to see happen with this board, that we have major decisions to be making, and we need to be able to coordinate with the Capital Outlay Committee and have a meeting with them and talk about the 5-year plan. We need to be able to come up with a strategy for working with Wareham, and we need to be able to figure out a way to get those discussions going, whether it's 2 people that go or meet with Wareham, whether we occasionally meet with the Board of Sewer Commissioners in Wareham, the Board of Selectmen in Wareham, and the Board of Sewer Commissioners board. That strategy needs to be kind of fleshed out so that we all know where we're going and how we're going to get there. So those are some of the things that I'd like to do. I think the rate discussion's really important. I don't see that we're going to be able to get a new rate system in this year, so we may have to talk about some incremental things. We haven't changed the overage rate since 2006, so all the people that are paying overage are paying 1 cent per gallon when the actual cost of the plant processing sewage is like 3 cents per gallon. So, but I don't think it's fair just to say, okay, well, now you're going to start paying 3 cents per gallon, because that would be an undue, unexpected burden on businesses. So when I talked to people, when I was running for the Board of Selectmen, we talked about incremental changes. You know, so if we need to get to 3 cents a gallon or 2.5 cents a gallon for the overage piece, so they're paying their fair share, how do we do that? You know, go from 1.2, how do we do it over the 3 to 5 years? These are the discussions that I would like the board to be having, and these are the discussions that I would like to facilitate. And I would like to do it in a way that everyone on the board feels that that their input is important and their opinion is important, and that we can come to consensus and work together to get the job done that we need to get done.
Thank you. Anything else from the board?
I would say that I think we have a good chair and vice chair situation percolating over here.
So does anybody have a motion? Anything?
Just one more comment. I would be, if this is a chair and vice chair percolating situation, so be it, and that's fine. I would just, I would really be happy if there were a good, healthy collaboration, because we do have a lot of stuff ahead of us. And it whether one person is chair, vice chair, or co-chairs, it doesn't matter. It does matter that there is collaboration, because without that, I mean, I have a situation last month where I had a shed built on my property, and there was 2 guys they spent the afternoon building the shed, and they really liked each other. They got along with each other, and they had a good time building the shed, and I was very happy watching them, because they made it happen, because they got along. And you don't have to agree on everything, but as long as you collaborate, that's the most important thing, because this town cannot afford not to collaborate. And I'm just looking forward to the continuation of some form of that. But anyway, that's my 2 cents, 3 cents, 4 cents.
Well, since we have 2 people in nomination, then the next motion's gotta be to put them both, to officiate that, and then we'll just go down the row of voting for who we want. So I guess the motion is to nominate Jared McDonald and Mary Jane Mastrangelo to be considered to the position of chair of the Bourne Sewer Commissioners.
Second.
Seconded. All right then.
And before the vote goes around, I just was wondering, do either one of you have a strong feeling either way, if this were to be a chair, co-chair situation?
No, I think I could work with it either way. All right, we'll start with you, George.
Okay, I'll vote for MJ Mastrangelo as chair, and Jared as co-chair, vice chair, whatever.
Vice chair. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to treat that as a separate motion.
Yeah, okay, that's,
I wasn't sure
that's,
either.
okay, I'm just talking out loud then, okay.
Yeah,
MJ
start with
Mastrangelo.
one. Yeah. Judy?
I vote for Jared.
Okay, and then Peter?
MJ?
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 All right then. I can vote for myself, but it really doesn't matter, so it's 3-2. So MJ will become the next chair of the sewer commissioners.
I nominate Jared McDonald as vice chair.
Second.
Okay. Any others? All right. George?
With enthusiasm, Jared McDonald.
Judy?
Jared.
And Peter?
Yes.
Jared?
All right. So I will vote for myself. That'll be vice chair for myself. And then we need a clerk. Any nominations for a clerk? Anyone want to volunteer?
I'd like to nominate Mary Jane Mastrangelo as clerk, just to get back at her.
Second.
Joke. But if need be, I will take on that, but I would first defer to the present clerk.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I respect that. I'm totally fine to relinquish it.
Either way. Anything else from anybody else?
And nominate George Slade as clerk.
Second.
Okay. George?
George.
All right. Judy?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
MJ?
Yes.
All right. That makes you the clerk, sir.
There you go.
Correspondences are online.
You're a weasel. You are, from the
I got very
word go,
smooth,
a
very
weasel.
smooth.
That's right. That's why we have these reorganizations.
So I will,
after the
I will
correspondence.
state, just for the record, the new chair will be Mary Jane Mastrangelo, the vice will be myself, Jared McDonald, and the clerk would be Mr. George Slade himself. Which I just would like to take a personal moment to say, I appreciate George mentioning how much time we've put in over the last couple of years, but I am also impressed by the amount of time that you spend on committees and boards. You offer a lot of your time, and most of us appreciate it.
Thank you, Jerry.
All right then, so correspondence,
I guess that's me.
unless you'd like me to read them since it's
Unless
the
you
last
want
one.
me to.
It's not the-
I am prepared.
Well, 3 pieces, an email from K Beer regarding wastewater outfall pipe. Also a letter from S and K Conlon regarding wastewater outfall pipe. Both are, parties are concerned about this. And Joint Base Cape Cod letter regarding divestment from Joint Base Cape Cod water and wastewater assets through the Converge contract. But everything is on the packet, which is also under today's date for the Board of Sewer Commissioners meeting.
So, without ado, the correspondence will all be available online, as George stated. So the last,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There we go.